Hello and welcome to another podcast from Odell Technology. Today we're fortunate enough to be joined by Simon Mifsud from Garland Surgical. Hello, Simon.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, so my name's Simon Mifsud, and I have been involved in medical devices for just over 30 years now, and started my career selling joint replacements and power tools, and moved on through various different disciplines throughout my career. Ended up starting my own company in the early 90s with a number of colleagues from Acufex when Smith & Nephew acquired the business. And that was, I guess, my first sort of professional attempt at being an entrepreneur. We set up a company called Atlantic Medical Devices, and that was a real successful hard graft, a steep learning curve, but gave me a lot of skills which I brought through into my later life, professional life. Really enjoyed that process. So when we were acquired, I stayed on with the company that acquired us, Arthrocare Corporation, and learned a lot about international trade and managing multi-discipline teams, which gave me the confidence to get involved in startups later on in life, having spent a good number of years with Arthrocare. So I felt well educated and well disciplined in the skill sets that I'd developed during that time to give me the confidence to become involved with these startups, where you have to wear multiple hats all the time, and it gives me the opportunity to put those skills into place.
But tell me about your background in orthopedics. You've had quite an extensive background in orthopedics.
Yeah, so it started off with a company called Fry Surgical, and that was, as I said, in the late 80s, early 90s. I was selling the joint replacement called the Insulburstine 2 knee, various copy hip replacements, and a range of power tools and instruments to complement that. And I was really quite young. I was only 19, and very unusual in those days for somebody of that age to be a medical device rep. But I was given the opportunity by John Fry, God bless him, and he put me in one of his premium accounts to look after. A guy took me under his wing and gave me the opportunity to really learn the craft. I then did a certificate of orthopedic medical technology that the BOA were running at the time, which really forced me to learn a lot about orthopedics, a lot about orthopedic disease, a lot about the pathologies and how they were dealt with, and actually gave me the opportunity to scrub in as a first assistant in many cases. And actually that hands-on approach suited me really well because I learned so much from the surgeons I was working with. So that company served me well in my early stages, and then I decided that I was based down in London, and I wanted to move back up to the Midlands where my partner was. So I took a job with Acufex Microsurgical, and they'd offered me a role to look after the Midlands and South Wales. I ended up looking after the Northwest as well for a short period of time, and really excelled at that. And then Smith & Nephew came along and acquired them from American Home Products. They weren't that keen on progressing me through their own career progression plan, let's say, because I didn't have a degree. So I decided I was going to move, and that's when we set up Atlantic Medical Devices, myself and some other ex-Acufex colleagues. So I started and ran the UK business for Atlantic Medical Devices, and we grew that into a really successful business over a number of years, culminating in Arthrocare acquiring the whole business in 2004. They obviously kept me on, and I ran a lot of their international operations, mainly around sales, but occasionally dipping into marketing. So again, it gave me a broader aspect of experience, and I was able to develop those skills that stand me in good stead today.
So tell me about the beginning of Garland Surgical. How did that all begin for you?
Well, Garland Surgical is a really exciting opportunity, developing a novel, disruptive hip replacement that's been developed by some really clever guys at the University of Malta. Malta is actually where my family originate from, so that immediately piqued my interest. And having been involved with orthopedics, I was asked to do some due diligence, if you like, on the opportunity by a company called NLC, who are a venture builder. And NLC were assessing the opportunity and wanted somebody with experience in that area from a commercial perspective to see whether it had legs, so to speak, if you'll excuse the pun. And when I came across it and reviewed it, it was so exciting. I insisted that they allow me to become the CEO, because I saw this as a truly innovative, novel approach to total hip replacements. You know, orthopedics is one of those specialities where there are many iterations of good ideas, but very rarely do you come across something truly innovative. And to me, this felt like a truly innovative approach to solving the hip replacement situation. And the device is being developed with a new approach to the articulating surfaces within the joint, which will hopefully provide patients a hip for life, because the surfaces seem to withstand the usual wear that normal total hip replacements are subject to. And we have some projected wear life of 50 plus years. Now, that's unheard of in that industry. So again, something that piqued my interest and I wanted to be involved in.
So at what stage is Garland Surgical at right now?
So we're still quite early. We're at technology readiness level 4. So we've got working prototypes that have actually been subject to accelerated wear testing in an ISO rated facility. And I put together a team of advisory board members and employees to further develop the technology. We've got a number of projects that we have to get through over the next couple of years. We recently won an Innovate UK Smart Award, which is going to help fund part of that development. And that's really exciting. That started in July. And we're working in collaboration also with the University of Leeds to help us with the sort of academic side and some of the testing prior to us going to full level prototype production and additional testing. So very exciting times, lots going on, really strong team. I'm so delighted with the team that we've managed to pull together in the form of advisory board members from the industry, and our principal engineers just joining us from Dupuy Synthes. So he's a senior guy that's got many years, 22 years of developing hip replacements. He's so excited about the opportunity. So there's a lot of energy in the team at the moment. So it's an exciting place to be.
There are a lot of hip replacement procedures across the world.
Yeah.
And there are mixed outcomes with hip procedures. If you look at the atlas of variation in a lot of countries, you'll see that regionally there's an enormous amount of variation. Do you think that your technology will help improve the amount of variation?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, we are working with currently very standard materials. So stainless steel as an articulating surface, and ultra high molecular weight polyethylene as an articulating surface. So some people might think that that's a sort of a step back, because everybody talks about ceramic on ceramic, ceramic on polyethylene. There's the polyethylene derivative that we're using is a highly cross-linked version, so that increases the longevity of it. But we are able, and we have been able to demonstrate in this accelerated wear testing, that with stainless steel and a normal ultra high molecular weight, a virgin ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, if you like, we can give virtually identical results to the current state of the art ball and socket joint. So that means that we can produce potentially this device for less money, which means that it may be, you know, more suited to countries where they don't have the financial ability to pay for the state of the art. Obviously, we are going to, you know, produce a state-of-the-art version as well, because we want to improve the opportunity for longevity. So we're starting by developing a primary hip, a primary uncemented hip. We will have a cemented version and we will have a revision version. So it's going to be developed as a system to allow surgeons across the globe to be able to work with one type of hip replacement that will address multiple patient cohorts.
Have you had a great deal of interest from key opinion leaders in orthopedics at this point?
Yeah, we have actually. I mean, obviously, it's one of those things that can create a little bit of controversy because it does take a very different approach to the articulating surfaces of a hip replacement. So we are using circulinear articulations across 3 degrees of freedom, whereas a regular hip replacement will use a random orbital articulation, which allows it to articulate in all the areas it needs to. So that there's going to be those that really love it, those that are a bit unsure, and those that just hate the concept. The guys that we've spoken to so far all understand the benefit of that circulinear articulation and understand why it reduces polyethylene wear so dramatically. They've never seen an application of that in hip replacements, so it's inciting a high degree of excitement, but with a cautious sort of healthy skepticism, which I applaud, because we want to be able to convince those skeptics that this is actually a substantial step forward in the development of the total hip replacement. So the half a dozen so people that we've spoken to, ranging from orthopedic surgeons that work in a large orthopedic center in the Midlands to a world key opinion leader, have all had similar reactions, which is excited interest. So I'm optimistic about the opportunity that this will provide once we've developed it further and answered some of those questions that are still outstanding.
Innovation always comes from the small operations, and they're incremental. So I think this is fabulous. It's very exciting. About your involvement with Leeds University, please.
Yeah, sure. So so obviously we have had this system provided and developed so far by the University of Malta, and obviously it's their baby, so everything about it is fantastic, and you can understand that, and it really is. But we wanted to add another layer of academia, if you like, to our research and our development work. So we felt that approaching Leeds University was one of the best things that we could do, because Leeds has got a rich history in development work on total hip replacements with many companies over the years, with many surgeons. So they have a broad understanding, they have some excellent facilities, and we're very lucky to be working with Professor Sophie Williams and her team on our SMART Award. It also allowed us to include them in the SMART application. So we have a number of developmental packages that they're involved in collaboration with us to help us kind of develop, assess, and validate some of the ideas that we have. Very exciting. They're a great group of people, and they're very open to sharing their knowledge with us.
You're in early stages of development for a very promising technology. You're in search of VC funding as well.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be just VC. It's early stage funding, so we're still considered by many investors as quite high risk. But I think the combination of the team that we've put together and the developmental program that we put together, the fact that we won an Innovate award, which is highly competitive, and very few companies in this space are awarded, is everything to add confidence for these sort of early stage investors. So we're trying to raise about £2 million to complete the product development work. We just closed a pre-seed round of €550,000, and that's been really helpful to give us the confidence and the ability to hire a good strong team and to put a number of smaller projects in place and get those going, so that we can demonstrate that we know what we're doing and give potential investors confidence in ourselves as a group and a team and in the actual venture and the product itself. And news hot off the press actually is our European patent was granted a couple of weeks ago. So that's a big milestone for us also, and I think that will also give further confidence for potential investors. So I would really reach out to anybody that potentially might be interested to contact us through our website or directly to me in order to be able to discuss any opportunities.
So Simon, could you tell me a little bit about your advisory, please?
Yeah, sure. That's it's a really good question, and it forms a big part of our team actually. So when I started to put the team together, I just was really honest with myself about where my weaknesses were essentially in the skills that I had and the current knowledge. So I felt like I would really benefit from having somebody from the hip replacement industry. Luckily for me at that time, a couple of guys that I was aware of had recently retired, a guy called Bob Bruce and a guy called Tim Band, and they've both come to our advisory board with decades of experience within the orthopedic industry, specifically in the development of the hip replacements. Bob worked more from the manufacturing perspective, and he brings a wealth of knowledge about how to manufacture a hip, how best to approach, and with a list of contacts in the industry that people would pay a lot of money for. And Tim ended his career as global VP for the hip franchise for Smith & Nephew. So a lot of experience in developing hip replacements over the years, and a lot of experience in running a large orthopedic concern. So they both mentor me, and they're a great sounding board. So from an industry perspective, I don't think I could have fallen on a better pair of advisors. And then we've also tried to find advisory board members that, again, where I have least experience. So I have a real good guy who I was introduced to called Manish Maglani, who's a VC himself, and he does some non-exec roles, helping and assisting small startups across the medical and health sectors. So I've been working with Manish for about a year now, and he's really helped me focus my presentations, my pitches, and what's important to discuss with the potential investors. So he's a real asset to us. And then we just started working with a guy who's an ex-colleague of mine, Bruce Prothero, who was with me at Arthurcare, and then stayed on with Smith & Nephew as they acquired Arthurcare, and was involved with the integration, and had then some experience not only of the sports medicine products that we were developing at Arthurcare, but of the orthopedic implant products at Smith & Nephew. So he's got a lot of relevant experience and will help us and guide us in our FDA applications and our CE marking and our MDR. So I think we've got all aspects covered at the moment. We've got a clinical guy called Ryan Giordamania, who's the current head of the Maltese Orthopedic Association, and he's one of the two surgeons that have actually been involved in advising the inventing team in Malta, and they actually put a couple of these devices into cadavers in Malta, just to make sure that there weren't any issues in terms of surgical approach and impingement, etc. So he's a really good guy. He's a bit of a skeptic, which is great, because he's not an easy walkover. He always questions everything, plays devil's advocate. So we will develop that clinical side. We'll find, and like I said, I'm speaking to some key opinion leaders over here in the UK to hopefully add to our clinical advisory board, because none of us come with an orthopedic surgeon qualification, so we do need that clinical input to make sure that we don't do anything silly and run down a rabbit hole blindly without checking that we're not that we're doing the right thing, essentially. So
Okay, so Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
Likewise.
Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the very best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to share the news about Garland Surgical and the Malta Hip.